Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I hope you all had a great weekend. I hope you had a great trading week, and I hope you're ready for yet another exciting trading market. I will say we should expect some volatility with the overall negotiation news that came over the weekend, and it is April OPEX. Now this week I want to kind of attack these weekly watch lists a little bit differently. So we have a bit more of a refined list, but with this intro, I want to talk about a little bit more about ES and my market expectations. So this week's video is going to be a little bit shorter, but I think it's going to be just as informative. I also want to make sure you guys are aware that I am in the process of recording the educational series, so please keep an eye on that within the next few weeks. I really want it to be informative and very thorough so you guys are able to understand all of the market concepts I use and how I put them together. Now remember, none of this is financial advice. This is just me sharing how I am approaching the market and hopefully giving you a few ideas to add to your own. So let's just go ahead and get started. So right off the bat, I am covering ES here and I am on the 4-hour chart. There's some pretty good things to kind of cover, and I want to make sure we get that all out of the way. So right off the bat, we can clearly see what kind of structure price was in, right? Up until you get right around here, you create that hourly lower high and you create those new broadening lows, right? So you ended up actually sweeping that 63625 area, and then you actually had a really nice change in state of delivery. And this delivery actually resulted in pushing you back up into the overall channel that we were stuck in, that then led to a higher low into a higher high. So we actually have had some market structural shift on the daily and the 4-hour, right? I think the weekly hasn't changed quite just yet, but in terms of a really nice structural view, right? I always talk about inverse head and shoulders at the bottom of broadenings because it's what can create your next series of buy models or sell models depending on where that head and shoulders is created, whether if it's from the top end or the bottom end. When you start seeing that very first set is when you can then expect series of consolidation into your next expansion, right? So with us having this structural change, really nice CISD, your MSS, now we have a set of higher lows and higher highs. I really want to pay attention to what can potentially happen this week. Now, given that we have all this volatility and the fact that these negotiations are very fragile, a lot of this can break, right? But what we have in front of us is what we can go off of. So looking at this 4-hour development here, headed into futures open, I do want to actually see a really nice breakdown of this and kind of act as a reset. Now, the question of where the reset is going to be is what we're actually paying attention to. One thing I want to mention as well is whenever you have these manipulations, guys, you can actually use that to project your deviations to look for the potential targets against that CISD, right? So we had this manipulative leg here into those new lows and then price aggressively displaced, changing the overall structure and character of this trend, right? So we are aware that as you push above the -2, -2.5, etc., we could start to expect some potential retracements and pullbacks, and that's kind of what I'm looking for headed into early of this week, and it could last all throughout, anticipating that it is OPEX. So here you have a zone that I have labeled as a must-hold zone for buyers, because if I zoom out from a daily standpoint, right, this is a really good reference point in terms of what it used to be and what it could potentially be again. So a really, really nice area that's been built out and carved for buyers and sellers in between this auction that has lasted since like October. So this is a really good value zone in terms of a potential area to look for buyers. Now, I would actually start to be a little bit cautious if we do start losing. I believe the level is 6665, right? So going back into this 4-hour here, sorry. Yeah, so 6665 down to 6627 is definitely an area to create some concern. Now the reason is because when I take the last known low before my expansion high and I annotate the discount because that is our swing low to swing high, I would actually like to see these kind of internals here get swept and get some kind of test somewhere under 6,730 down into that 6,627. So it's about a 100-point range, but within that 100-point range, I do want to see if buyers could potentially stabilize. So that's kind of my bias headed into this week is, are we actually going to confirm this daily expansion, right? There's a lot of supportive confluences for buyers, and if the market is going to be fragile, I need to see a nice confirmation of like that 6665, 6627 break, because then it might give us a deeper pushback somewhere into maybe the 6400s again, right? So scenario would be retrace into this daily, find a higher low, or get a deeper extension that could create into maybe another relative double bottom, et cetera, somewhere within that 63, 6200 range, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking at. I want to first see if this overall displacement is going to find buyers. Now, if this is my approach into the market, looking for those internal external sweeps into those supportive confluences, I'm looking at names that were strong, right? Names that had really strong development into new weekly highs, new monthly highs, because with this potential pullback, if it happens, these names that were really strong overall and leading in the market are definitely going to find buyers if we do get those retracements. Okay, so the names that I am keeping an eye on, and we're going to actually chart these together, starting off is AMAT. AMAT, so there's two ways to approach this. Excuse me. This is AMAT daily, right? We had really nice exhaustion at the lows where price failed to fully break down, and instead we get a really nice broadening up into new monthly highs. And now we kind of have a failed shooter. We have areas of reference point, right? So we have this first reference point, and then we have our breaker followed with a gap. So this is kind of how I'm going to be approaching AMAT, is I'm looking at two scenarios, right? Get the external broadening to find some internal development, or we actually get a really nice like monthly breaker retest into the earnings gap. Zoom into the 4-hour. This is kind of what I'm looking at, right? Depending on how this retracement acts, can we actually get a supportive retracement to establish a nice rebalance of orders to eventually trade this back up? Earnings is still a month out, so I think we can get a pretty good trade out of this if the overall trend gives us that confirmation. And you can also take, like, this is where you had kind of like the gap down build up and then you have the consolidation. So you could also take like the 4-hour internal and pair it up, see if you get any confluences, or you can take the overall weekly range to see if there's any confluences within the weekly and the 4-hour, right? So it does look like, let me see. Okay, I'm just mapping it out. So it does look like there's also a bit of confirmation in between here. So these would kind of be the zones I'm looking at, right? Now, this would be more of like a deeper retracement into a gap fill. So the first two scenarios is, let's actually observe where you gap down into if you do gap down. And I would really like somewhere within this region because it lines up with a monthly breaker. And it's also the area that did get and create some kind of overlapping inefficiency, right? So somewhere within this first set. And I really like AMAT to establish the higher low and potentially trade higher. Because for one, I don't think this has fully finished when you actually map out the deviations. So we can actually take into account if we've actually hit the -2, right? Push up here, and then this is where you actually sweep. So this is the larger. And one thing I'm doing differently too is like I'm actually charting this out with you guys so you can kind of follow along. But if we do this, oops. Yeah. So this actually looks a little bit too extreme, I think. Yeah, there you go. So you push up here and then sweep and then kind of reclaim. There you go. So I do think this still has momentum up into 410 and 420 if we can get a supportive retracement here. So definitely keep an eye on AMAT, okay? 1 second. Next up on the list is going to be, 1 second, you guys need to adjust this. Okay, next one on the list is going to be CAT. And this is also very similar to pretty much what we're looking at on AMAT, right? Look at the daily delivery. Daily delivered into new highs, and you have supportive gaps. So now we have, yet again, we have so many breakers to work with, guys. Breaker here, and that's also a monthly high, and then you have the supportive gap. So when I put you back into the 4-hour, again, you can use this retracement here into that expansion if you really want to look for some kind of discount, if we get it, just like this. And you can pair it up with, oh, come on. Oh, there you go. And you can pair it up with where, but like I'm looking at these smaller lines to trade higher, or we get a full on discount type of scenario. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for CAT. Very, very similar to the AMAT potential. And that's kind of what I'm going at, guys. Here is like these 4 names that I'm covering is because they've had really nice breakouts, and I want to potentially see if I can capture that retracement to confirm the overall trend. Another really good one is AMKR. This one does have earnings on the horizon, but again, really strong externals and internals, right? Here you have your overall range high, and you do have the stability of a really nice displacement zone paired with the gap. So similar to the other ones, right? We can go in and pair the 4-hour. Now this one has a bit more of a range. And I'm not sure if you do get the full retracement, but similar to the other ones, right? It's either zone 1 or zone 2, right? And that's kind of what I'm keeping an eye on. I really like the overall consolidation that this experienced since the start of January. And now you got a really nice like poke out. I don't know if you get straight continuation from here, but I am looking for early signs of buyers within this week to either identify within this range high, or we get a monthly breaker paired with a gap confluence type of scenario. And finally on the list is COHR. Very clean chart, similar to AMKR here. And when I show you this, same thing, guys. Really clean breaker here paired up with a 4-hour volume imbalance. And then not only that, but you have another like daily low sweep here paired with a gap. So it's like, man, there's so much to like with these potential early weaknesses, because in terms of the corresponding trend, it can be very much buyable. And so that's kind of how I'm approaching this week, guys, is I'm looking at these names that showed really, really nice development last week, and using that development as a potential opportunity to find some form of lower time frame, higher low to continue the trend. And yeah, pretty short video, but those are the names that I really like, and also some bonus charts that I won't spend too much time on. But CRDO on the weekly is also one of my favorites. You have a really nice monthly broadening low developed with a really nice daily broadening inversion and weekly displacement. So if there's an opportunity on this one, I would like some kind of little early retracement that then pushes you back up into the 140 plus headed into earnings. Keep an eye on this one if it does give you some form of like daily reset, because I think it's starting to set up a really nice space down here to potentially get a really nice risk reward trade into earnings. Similar to CRDO, I think HD bearing as long as you don't lose 320. So this would be the invalidation zone here, that previous month low. You can come in and annotate that. We'll just call it invalidation and label it in red. So I think as long as this area down here, which is like 320, 319, I actually don't like that it's in the middle, right? As long as that holds, any kind of retest here within this internal broadening could be a supportive push to push price back up into that daily golden pocket, which is what I did was I took the weekly range. And as you can see here, you got a sweep all the way back to 2024 into a really nice weekly inefficiency here. And price kind of traded back up, went outside weak. If we take the overall range from swing high to swing low, there could be a potential scenario where HT manages to climb all the way back up into that 360. All we need is no weekly closes under 320. And then some other bonus charts. AXTI has really pretty daily development. Look for any internal dips to continue the move into all-time highs. eBay has really pretty 4-hour structure. Similar to the other ones, right? We can actually potentially look for a decent discounted entry on this, where you create a nice set of LRLR and then find your expansion leg into earnings as well. I really like eBay. And then finally is APH based off of this this daily chart. Similar to HD, really aggressive sweeps of those external ranges. You finally took all of them out and then you literally gap through it. Remember, when you have a strong level, guys, so like let's say this is our foundation here. When you have a strong level, and if you're not going to manipulate and you push underneath, you should reject it and continue lower. But when you have that level and you have that significant zone of where buyers exist and you don't break underneath it, and instead this is the range low, you break underneath and then you just gap up, guys, this entire area now becomes a really good reference point to solidify buyers to continue on up. And then you create really nice manipulation sweeps against liquidity down there. And that's kind of what APH has done here. If I go back and show you this daily chart, really nice external sweeps into a gap, and then you gap up through those monthly range lows. So that's very significant to me. And if you get any kind of retest back into like that 125, 129, 133 zones, I would like to see price aggressively reclaim 155 and up. And I think this is setting up really nicely, as this is also some weekly LRLR. Higher time frame looks great. But yeah, I don't want to keep up too much of your time. Pretty short watch list. Hopefully it was informative for you guys. That pretty much concludes everything for this week. Hopefully I was able to help you guys. Thank you all for the subscribers that keep coming in and just commenting and liking and sharing my page with all your friends and family. And, I really do appreciate it. As always, see you guys next week and good luck. See ya.